Hello, everyone. It's Francis Widdowson here. The reason for this video is that I want to continue to post short videos on YouTube to draw attention to some of the crazy things that are going on. And for people who are not on what used to be called Twitter, where I've been posting clips of all these claims that are being made, which make no sense, yet we just continue to see this happening. So we had the announcement in May 2021 when Sarah Bollier, who is the ground penetrating radar operator for the Kamloops band, made the announcement that it was just targets of interest and it wasn't the remains of children being confirmed. Even though she stated that, the band continued to assert that children's remains were on this site. The media and the universities just did an absolutely terrible job in trying to draw attention to this false claim that was made in May 2021. So everyone kind of absorbed that. Now, we can say, okay, no one really understood GPR at that time and what GPR can and cannot do. And therefore, this huge falsehood and so on took place. But now we've had years of discussing the limitations of GPR. And with GPR, it really does not have a clear understanding of what lies beneath the soil. We have soil disturbances, but as we saw with the Pine Creek case, when they thought that there was 14 people buried in the church basement, the knowledge keeper has said so, and they did an excavation and found rocks there, we get a bit of a sense of how GPR really doesn't help us to understand what's beneath the soil. But anyway, what has happened now is we've had a couple of cases in the last month or so. There has been Kuper Island, which is in the Georgia Strait, north of Salt Spring Island, and the Sechelt case has come back into the news again. And again, we have the situation of ground penetrating radar being used and then it being pretended that this is confirming the knowledge keepers' views that they believe that there are these remains that are buried there. And in the case of Kuper Island, the archaeologist is Andrew Martindale. He's from the University of British Columbia. And we have footage of him saying there are 342 unmarked graves, 111 are possible graves, 133 are probable graves, and 98 are likely graves. Now, does that make any sense at all? Because he says unmarked graves and then it's uncertain whether they are graves. So that is an incredibly irresponsible announcement for him to make. And he was reading off a sheet of paper. So it wasn't just an error. And then, of course, the media, which should have picked up on this and questioned him about it, just totally didn't recognize that, and then goes on to ask about the problems of residential school denialism. The other thing that Martindale says in a written account of this situation is that there was an elder by the name of Monty Charlie who said that a nun pushed a child out a third-story window and then the nun buried the child beside an apple tree and the stump is still there. So Martindale has been shown that stump where that child is claimed to be buried. So why is that not being excavated now? And we've just heard that the elders for Kuper Island say that they're going to undertake forensic excavations. So the question is, why not start with that claim that's being made by that elder about the child being buried by this stump of an apple tree? So UBC is being drawn into this because Martindale works for the University of British Columbia. University of British Columbia should be taking some kind of ownership for the unethical behavior of an archaeologist that is associated with it. So that's the Kuper Island case. Second case is the Sechelt case. And we had in 2023 an announcement that 41 unmarked graves had been found. Lenora Joe, who's the chief, said that children were lying in the fetal position. The GPR had detected this. And of course, we know that GPR can't even determine if there are remains there. So how would it know that there was children buried in the fetal position? Anyway, they just made another announcement that there's 41 more unmarked graves that have been found. And then they said, please allow us the time for grieving. We don't want to receive any questions from the media. So the media should not be accepting this. The media is the institution that is supposed to hold organizations to account, and because the media is not doing that, we really don't have any accountability as to what's happening with these claims about the unmarked graves. So I think we have a number of problems that are being exposed by these current cases of Sechelt and Kuper Island. And we need for the various institutions to be acting properly so that we can help to inform the public about the probability of there being burials in these locations. And this is not happening. And so the universities as well need to be overseeing what is going on in terms of ethics. We have all these ethics boards now that are in existence. What about the ethics of an archaeologist who is employed at a university going and doing things like Terence Clark did, which was the case for Saskatchewan when he was doing ground penetrating work for Saskatchewan? You have him actually being recorded saying, can you imagine a child lying on its side in a pit when he's looking at the anomalies that are being viewed on the GPR? That is an incredibly irresponsible thing to be doing. And what it is doing, as we see with all these cases and all the Aboriginal people that you are watching on these videos that are being created about these cases, is that these archaeologists are traumatizing Aboriginal communities because they're getting them to imagine children being clandestinely buried in these various contexts. And that is absolutely unacceptable. And we need to have our institutions acting properly about this. So I just wanted to alert you to the cases of Kuper Island and Sechelt, because there's no excuse for those cases. There was an excuse perhaps for Kamloops, but we're way past that now, and we have a much better understanding, and still we see the kinds of irresponsible actions that occurred in 2021. Thanks very much for listening.